every dad, calling him to lead. Society, vices, inner demons, negative thoughts try to dampen and drown out that voice, but it never goes away. Your wife feels it, your children feel it, and your heart and soul feel it too. It's the voice that starts off as a whisper, but then becomes a calling to be the tip of the spear for your family, a calling to play all out and lead by example for your children, a calling to build a legacy that will go on for generations, a calling to be the warrior dad you were born to be. Dads, our children need us now more than ever to be that beacon of hope, courage, positivity, and strength. It's time to rise as warrior dads together as a brotherhood. If you felt that twinge in your soul, it's time for the Warrior Dad Experience. Welcome to the show. I am extremely excited and pumped up for my guest today, Charlie Greene. Charlie, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Jeff. Happy to be here.
Yeah, I'm excited to dive in and really get to learn more about Remento. And let's start with your story, because I know you've got a pretty compelling, pretty emotional backstory of what was the trigger for you starting this company. I know legacy is a key component, preserving those memories. That's near and dear to my heart. So I would love to for you to share that with the audience so they kind of get a feel.
Yeah, definitely. Well, thank you again, Jeff, for having me. The company that we've developed is called Remento. It's like combining the words remember and memento, and it's because we're focused on helping families preserve the stories of their aging relatives. And we're building technology that makes that really simple. And for me, my own personal inspiration for caring about this cause stems directly back to my own upbringing and growing up in a home with two parents who were, by all accounts, like freakishly obsessed with the home video camcorder. Okay. And they use that thing to document just an unbelievable amount of footage from the first decade of my life. All of the births and the birthdays and the graduations and the recitals. We have almost 100 hours of videotape from that first decade. And all of that content took on a totally different level of meaning in the years after my dad passed away, shortly after my 10th birthday. And that content became not only a way to remember those times, but as he passed away, an opportunity to remember and memorialize him too. And I remember as a 12-year-old, 2 years after he passed away, sitting down and digitizing a lot of those tapes. Okay. And I remember being so surprised at what it was that would bring tears to our eyes as we watched that content. And it wasn't the milestones like the births and birthdays and graduations and recitals. It was the video that captured him just being a dad, just being an amazing dad, in many cases when he didn't realize the camera was watching. So I've got a video of him holding me in his arms for the first time. It's like as Kodak of a moment as you can imagine, right? Yeah. Mm-hmm. And actually the video that I care most about probably in my life is one of him sitting at the breakfast table. My mom is filming him and he's just eating a bagel, explaining how nervous he is that he hasn't installed the car seat into the back of the car in the right way. Okay. And it's just such a human moment that as a 12-year-old was the way that I would remember my dad. And today, years later, I'm able to interact with him by way of that video as I've had my own kids and understand what he was like as I enter this new chapter of my life. So for me, very early in life, there was a deep appreciation for the power of recordings and specifically video to be able to keep alive the memories of the people we love. Flash forward 15 years, my mom gets diagnosed with stage 3 lung cancer. And it becomes really clear that it's unlikely that my kids will ever have a chance to meet their grandparents. Okay. And in a moment of panic, I sat down with my mom 2 weeks before she started her chemotherapy to start recording her stories, hoping to create a really like a time capsule that my kids would have access to in the future. Mm-hmm. And what blew me away about that experience was, having sat down to document stories that, when we hear our parents talk about, we roll our eyes because we've heard them so many times. Like, I wanted my kids to have those stories, but right. Asking my mom simple, in many ways innocuous questions like, how'd you get to elementary school? It led to her telling stories that I had just simply never heard before. And it left me wondering, why was it that it took this cancer diagnosis for me to sit down with my mom and actually learn about her in a way that I never had before? And then, of course, also by way of having recorded the content, created an archive that is designed to stand the test of time. So for me, my own inspiration for trying to help other families find ways to document the stories of their parents, their grandparents, and indeed their entire family history stems from the opportunity to having done that with one parent, the desire that I feel every day wishing I had done it with the other, and then just like this profound sense of excitement helping other people do the same.
That's awesome. I love it. And I mean, we shared before we got on that it's almost 10 years from my mom's passing, and we don't have that type of video and stories, and just missed out on that. And I remember, Charlie, the last deep conversation I had with her, she was scared she'd be forgotten. So thinking about what you do and capturing those and video memories and stories, talk about that fear going away. It can be passed down for generations. And I think that's something we just don't do. So you had that spark, you had that capture. What then was the next steps to getting to where you are now?
Well, we started talking to customers. That was the first thing that we did. And I tried to get a sense of, is the experience that I had in my life in any way similar to an experience that other people had. What we found was that there was a small group of people who exist who had actually at some point in their life sat down with their parents and they recorded their stories. For some people, it was a formal experience. Some people hired a biographer to do it for them. Others just, put their iPhone or their Android like on recording and just like put it next to them as they had dinner one night. A lot of people also save voicemails. The vast majority of people, though, didn't have anything in the way of recordings of their family stories. And we started prying into this question of why is that? And at the end of the day, most people would just shrug their shoulders and say, I really wouldn't know where to begin. Like, I wouldn't know what to ask. I wouldn't know what to do with the content once I had it. It would probably just get forgotten about. And it feels like a project. And in my life, I don't have time for another one of those.
Gotcha.
So what we set out to do was to ask the question, what if preserving the memories and stories of someone you love was as simple as having a conversation? And what if you didn't actually have to have that conversation with them, but it was an experience that they could take on themselves and contribute to directly? And what if we could take all of those experiences and turn them into a physical keepsake that could be handed down in your family, into the future?
Okay. So what is the process? Explain a little bit more about what the process is, how, a dad listening to the podcast, to the show is like, man, I've got a parent that maybe is getting close or just had a cancer diagnosis or has 6 months. What is the process that they would go through to kind of get involved and start to capture those stories and those memories?
Well, a lot of our customers are dads who come to us and they say, look, I've got parents who live, maybe near me, maybe they're far away. We see them a couple times a year. We wish it was more. When my kids are with them, the conversation is kind of forced, sometimes stale. They talk about the weather. It's like, it's hard for them to interact with each other. And I would love nothing more if there was an opportunity for them to grow closer together. They're also saying, I know my parents are getting older and they're not going to be around forever. And I would love for my kids to be interested in learning about, my dad or my mom's stories, or perhaps their great grandparents' stories. But I'm worried that perhaps by the time they become interested, those stories will no longer be available. So I'd love to find a way to be able to both document this for the future, but also if there's a way to be able to create some kind of understanding in our family, that'd be great too. So when you buy Remento for a parent or a grandparent, you're signing up for a year's worth of learning their stories.
Okay.
So the first step is to pick what you want to learn about. So if you've got a parent who had an incredible childhood, or perhaps was in the military and you want to learn all about that experience, or an amazing career, or anything specific, you can identify the things you want to learn about. Or you can leave it to us and we'll use our artificial intelligence powered interviewing technology to be able to ask them questions as we learn more and more about them. Every week, we'll send them both an email and an SMS with a link that they click on without any apps to download or logins or passwords. They just start talking. They answer the question that appears on their screen. We record them. They talk for as long as they want. Some people speak for 2 minutes. Some people go a lot longer than that. And then we'll take that recording and we'll transcribe it and then send it to your family, either as a direct transcript, or if you prefer, a written story that is processed as if you had hired a professional biographer to write it about them. Everyone in the family gets that recording and the story. You can share it with your kids. You can keep it all to yourself if you want. And then at the end of a year, we will take all of those stories, both the recordings and the written content, as well as any photos that have been uploaded, and we'll print it into a hardcover book that, again, was written without anyone in your family having to write a word. And then the fun little thing is that we include QR codes within the books that when you scan, will link directly to the recording that was used to write the story. So for the parent, it's the book that writes itself, their memoir, no writing required. And for you, it's your parent or your grandparent's stories at your fingertips with a direct connection to their voice as well, in a way that can never be taken away from your family.
Gotcha. So is it voice only, or is it voice and video? Which one is it from?
We accommodate both. It's funny. Most of our storytellers would prefer to do audio, and all of the families want the video. So,
right.
So a lot of what we do is try to encourage people to say, like, yeah, you can start with audio, but like, what if you tried video? And then when you get to watch a video of your parents speaking into your phone, telling a story about their childhood, you come to realize how much more compelling it is to see all the mannerisms on their face as they're actually telling the story.
Yeah, I love that. Is, the overall mission of what you're doing with your company and preserving those stories and those legacies, is it so families are documenting and multiple generations down the road can learn about great-great-grandpa and listen to their story and understand kind of their lineage? Is that an underlying theme of what you're looking to do?
Spot on. I mean, just think about today. If you could watch a video of your great-great-grandparent telling the story of immigrating to this country, or starting their business, or just what life was like back then. And think about the fact that we live in the digital age and we're creating more content than ever, documenting our lives in a way that has never before been possible. But in a way, like the letters that Alexander Hamilton wrote, share more of an insight into the type of person he was than any of the content that we are creating in the digital age. So part of what we're trying to do is get people to slow down, pause, and use the digital technology to create documentation of lives well lived in a way that your family, both today, but 10, 20, 100, 400 years into the future, will be able to appreciate and enjoy.
Yeah, no, I love that. And I think that's such a vital piece of kind of knowing where you came from. And a lot of people lose that connection of, hey, a couple of generations ago, who was my grandfather? Who was my grandmother? And without that documented stories, those books, the either the voice recording, or if they're ambitious in doing the video recording, those things can just last a lifetime. So, and the other fact that I love is that family's not doing anything. You are dictating kind of, hey, here's what you could talk about, and you're giving those scripts, because so many people say what they don't have time, but yet people are going to get to their end of their life and they're going to wish that they had actually documented the journey. So I love that. How'd you come up with kind of the script and what to send to people? I'm sure it was a lot of, just market research and asking questions, but how did you come up with, what to give to that individual that's doing the recordings?
Well, it's a blend of art and science. If we think about the best interviewers of our time, I happen to be in the company of one of them today, but the best, most celebrated interviewers of our time, you come to realize that there is a science to conducting interviews, and it's a learned science. And for many of us, it can feel intimidating. There's also an art, right? The way that we use pauses to be able to elicit additional details, the follow-up questions that show both that we're listening and allow someone to tap into a part of their memory that perhaps they couldn't have surfaced without the specific way that the follow-up question was asked. So what we started this journey doing is working with a collection of professional storytellers and interviewers to design the experience in a way that aligned with both the kind of art and science of professional interviewing, right? So that as we tried to replicate the experience of being interviewed in an automated capacity, we were able to incorporate a lot of those best practices. But one of the things that's very useful about our technology is that it's constantly learning about what questions are great and which questions are not so good, and which questions work best with different types of people. And that's one of the big opportunities for us going forward is for every person that participates in a Remento interview, we become better and better at asking the next person the specific right question, given who they are, where they come from, where they grew up, and all of these other factors. So to answer your question, it started with working with professionals who are best in class at doing this. Okay. But what we're doing over time is making sure that the technology is able to learn and make sure that the 1,000th person that participates in our in our technology has an experience that's been informed by every single person that's come before them.
Gotcha. Okay. I appreciate you answering that. I have another question for you related to, hey, a family that says, hey, my dad, for example, I want him to go through this process. He signs up for a year. Every week he's recording things. What have you seen? Have you seen it go longer than that and they're capturing more about their life? Do you have the ability to, hey, it's always there available for the family after the year time frame? What does that look like? And can the family continue to build that, let's say, video and audio repository with multiple peoples in the family? And is it like almost like a family kind of story album that they can do? I'm curious.
Well said. Well said. We call it our family memory hub. Okay. And what a lot of our families will tell us is like, I bought Remento because I wanted this book, right? And this book was going to write itself, and I wasn't going to have to do a whole lot of work. What they find is that they fall in love with the process of learning something new about their loved one every week, using that learning as a way of connecting with them, and then knowing all of that content will forever and always be at their fingertips. So the answer is yes. Like the book becomes less of the value over time, and it actually becomes the content that has been collected and the journey of collecting that content that I think resonates most with people. As it relates to getting people excited about that journey and feeling inspired as they move through, it doesn't take much. It really doesn't. We find generally that when people give Remento as a gift, they're giving it to one of two people, two personas. The first person says, "It's about damn time that you asked me for my life stories because I've been waiting." Okay. And those are the people that we pay a little bit more to because we have to hold a couple hours of their content or tens of hours of their content. And the second group of people say, "I'm not sure why you think my story is worth preserving." Right. And what ends up being very interesting for that second group is the process of realizing why this is important. Right. Like not all of us have been elected presidents or survived tragedies or have stories that, like, as a society and a culture, we would deem to be worthy collectively of preserving for the benefit of the future. But if you were at in the later years of your life and you had access to only a couple of stories, for most people, the things that they would gravitate most to, care most about, are not the stories of presidents and survivors. It would be the stories from their own family. Yep. And what that second group of people comes to realize very quickly in the journey of sharing their stories with their family is, despite having in many respects, in many cases, received Remento as a gift themselves, they've been gifted Remento for a holiday perhaps. Actually, the gift exists in what they're creating for their family, helping their kids and their grandkids and all of these generations in the future always have access to a piece of their legacy. Right? There's many businesses that have been built around genealogy and helping people understand this question of who am I and where do I come from by way of looking at facts. This person came to the United States via Ellis Island on this day. And that data is so important to our identity, right? But our perspective has always been that as important as that data is, it is just as important to know what it was like crossing through that turnstile on that day. Right. And there's just as much to be passed down, if not a lot more, in sharing the lived experience of how that moment shaped that person and, as a result, the entire family. So for us, a big part of our job is to be the facilitator of both the grandparents and the parents who believe so strongly that it's time for their story to be shared because they recognize for themselves that their story is important, but also helping the family that doesn't have that confidence in sharing their own story, helping them understand why this is so important. And that's a really beautiful thing to see when the family is able to come to that realization together.
Yeah, so true. And I think about audio and video versus just written, kind of the lineage. You have tonality. when you have audio and video. And so much of what we speak about comes through tone. And when you have a loved one actually talking, I think the connection just gets so deeper. Is that one of the reasons why you kind of went that route?
It 100% is. We've had podcasters who tell us that the thing that's so important about a podcast is it removes the distractions of having video, so you can just listen to the audio.
Gotcha.
And my response to that has always been, did you realize that video podcasts also contain audio?
Right.
And you don't have to watch, but one day you might decide that you want to, and wouldn't you be glad in that moment to have it? So yes, there's such beauty in prose, being able to write someone's story and document it. And for a lot of people, that would be their preferred path of being able to document their life's work. But for the vast majority of us, the prospect of writing a book is incredibly daunting, right? It just is. And the reason why not every single person has a self-published memoir is because it's, for many people, a Herculean effort. So what we're looking to do is not only try to create an opportunity to get the video in addition to having the writing, but to say, what if the video actually made your life a lot easier? Like, what if you didn't have to write your book and instead could just talk for a couple of minutes a week as if you were having a telephone call, and you'll end up with this physical book. You'll have the written content for the people that want to be able to hold onto a physical book and put it on their coffee table and show their friends. But your family is also going to have all of these other things as well, which may or may not be as important. And I will say, one of the things for people who have kids under the age of 20, and in many respects older as well, is they're consuming their information more and more by way of short form video.
Yes.
And one of the things that we're really excited about doing is making it so that you can have content that is of your family, about your genealogy, about your life, that is just as compelling to watch as any of the content that exists on your TikTok. And again, the challenge will, in 20 and 30 years from now, exist not in finding ways to make long form content engaging. The challenge will be getting that long form content in the first place, because if that person is no longer with us, it's impossible. So from our perspective, our goal is to try to get as many people recording their life stories with the promise of creating a book today, but with the opportunity to turn that into a variety of different things in the future.
Gotcha. Love it. Yeah, I'm writing my second book, and it is a Herculean effort. I will tell you, though, a lot of those repeated authors, they're doing exactly what you're doing. They're talking and having it transcribed, and somebody else, a ghostwriter, do it. So I love that fact. What about for dads like myself? I'm going to turn 50 this next year. My sons are 16 and 14. What about a dad like myself starting to document the journey? All right. I feel like there's just so much peace that comes along with sharing the memories and having them there available. Have you seen that type of clientele hop in and kind of start the recording process?
We certainly have. Yeah. Well, I mean, one of the things that some of our early customers reached out to us saying is, when my son or my daughter was born, I created a Gmail account for them.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And I started sending them, a message every week. And then my second kid was born, and it ended up being like, an email once a quarter or like once a year. Yeah. It's amazing what happens between your first and your second kid in terms of your commitment to all of these, like, all these really important priorities that you plan, and then just life gets in the way. But the question for them was like, this feels like maybe a way to replace that email with a product that is a lot more compelling than like an email account full of writing. Mm-hmm. Actually a written book, but then also like a really beautiful way to be able to have your kids preserve your voice, and to your point, the tonality and the way that you're sharing things. So we have a lot of people who are buying this as a journal for themselves. Mm-hmm. And they're using it to document memories for their kids. Yep. They're using it to document parts of their career. I've got a Remento book specifically about my founding story, almost as a diary, which I contribute to as I drive to work. I set it before I start driving, and then I finish it once I park. Nice. But the use cases are quite endless in that regard, turning turning spoken words into keepsakes. So we're excited to lean into those use cases more in the future for sure.
Yeah, no, I love that from a kid perspective, documenting their journey and starting to capture all those stories. If, I've got two, if the second one came along and you weren't as diligent about doing the daily video or the weekly, monthly video, going back and just starting to describe the journey of them being born and how you felt as a dad and how their journey's been and how you've gotten to, I get choked up about it, how you've had amazing moments as they continue to grow from toddler, adolescents, toddlers, to young adults, to men or girls, or to women. Man, imagine documenting that journey, and they always have that for them. I think that's so extremely powerful.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, Jeff, like, and you're so right. Like I would just add it doesn't have to be profound stuff. I think a lot of people think like, oh my gosh, I've got to like offer wisdom that my kids will be able to look at if I pass away, and they need to understand like the mysteries of life. It's like, no, like any of us who have lost a parent, like, you feel this way about your mom. I know you do. I feel the same way about my dad. I just want to hear him talking about anything. If it was about me, that would be amazing. But we hear this from so many of our customers who are inspired to use Remento because of someone they didn't use it with. And with this, I want to hear the sound of their voice.
Yes.
I would give anything to hear the sound of their voice. And that's one of the things as it relates to using Remento to create a gift for your own family, which is like, it doesn't have to be big, profound stuff. Just talking about a photograph that you took on a Saturday of running through a sprinkler, that is going to be something that unequivocally, I hope for both of us, it's 100 years in the future where that becomes available. But for some people, it will of course become, much more meaningful in a shorter period of time. Like in my life with my dad, that content is going to be priceless. And that's going to be content that you're not going to be able to create in the way that you could create it today, 20 or 30 years from now.
Yeah, no, I love it. That's so it pulls on those heart and soul strings. And I, as you're talking about, I was thinking about a memory of just sitting in my living room watching my boys do homework, and my youngest son is doing something for art, and the pencil's going, against the table, and that's the only sound I'm hearing. And I was just in a state of gratitude of looking at them and just soaking in the moment. Like, that would be a great story to tell. Right. So I love, Charlie, what you're up to. I think this is such a critical component of preserving our memories, our family stories, our legacies, which, as dads, at the end of the day, that is all we have, is the legacy that we're gonna leave. Right. So where can people learn more about Remento and get involved? Please share that with the audience.
Yeah, well, you can learn about our product on our website. You can just Google Remento. Again, it's like remember and memento in one word. And I would say, if you've got someone in your life with amazing stories to tell, which you almost unequivocally do, just think to yourself, 30, 40, 50 years from now, who is the person that you're going to wish you had done this with? And what I would say very humbly is, you don't have to use our product. Take out your iPhone and use the voice recorder app if you want. That's good enough. It really is. But do something to be able to document this stuff. And if we can be helpful in that process, our team and our product would love to support.
Love it. Charlie, thanks so much for being on the show.
Yeah, such a pleasure. Thank you for having me, Jeff.
You got it. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Dare to be uncommon. Lovely legacy. Create a legendary day. I'll talk to you soon.